Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We've been born out of conquering a world. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful, and we're beautiful, and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. But you must stop bowing to those who want to make you a victim. You must become the victor. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, then you are an enemy of the New World Order and Satanism. They want us shut down because we have the Spirit. I'm jacked into the source. I know the secret, and I want to see you empowered. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the core of today's video, I wanted to give an update on the video I did about EA and BioWare scamming Dragon Age fans, because I had a major issue yesterday where I wasn't able to save my Dragon Age Origins game. I wasn't able to access the DLC. And I tried to fix that for over an hour. I contacted Microsoft. They didn't seem to know what was going on. They recommended a refund. However, today somebody did get back to me, and they walked me through how I can make it so that I can access the downloadable content and I can save my game. And I can say now, I can save my game and get DLC. Here's the thing, though. This was not an error on my part. And it wasn't an error on the original person I talked to who said they didn't have a clue. This was an abstract, ridiculous hurdle that had to be jumped through in order to play this game, because EA decided that even though it's a 2009 game, that you still have to have this ridiculous system in place. It is egregious. The EA servers are down. Let people play the game seamlessly like it's any other game. I don't understand why they would put that in here. It was a huge headache. It was a huge hassle. But what I can say, at the bare minimum, at least now, after all the frustration and time, I can still play the game. So at that point, I'll say it's no longer really a scam. It's just a huge, 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 huge inconvenience. So thankfully, that has been resolved. But man, it really should not be that difficult. I think that it should be illegal to have a single-player game with an always online server element or something to make it that it's that goddamn hard to come up with a way to save your game. Saving the game should never be incumbent upon you logging into anything. And it was. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have a video to watch today. This video is from an unlikely source. Legacy Killer HD.
Dragon Age
So the title of this video is Dragon Age the Veilguard is crashing hard and fast. And that could not be more true. This game is cratering. This game is so bad and so disastrous for the woke mob and so disastrous for the media that the gaming press is actually revising their initial response to the game. Because when you put your review in the hands of a freak that is obsessed with themselves and their identity, and I'm so important that I'm going to bypass any of the safeguards that may be in place to sort of protect from this sort of bias, and I'm going to give the game a 9 out of 10 because this game tackles inclusion, diversity, and equity, and covers LGBTQ issues. So it's a 9 out of 10. Yay! They had to basically go back and do damage control because one of these freaks, once again, put themselves above everything else. Because these people are so empty and soulless and just devoid of anything redeemable that their sexual identity is their only identity. I know that that's hard for some people to think about. I know that's hard for some people to wrap their mind around. But I want you to really understand that these people who are working on these games, that are working as community managers, that are working as moderators and all these other positions, these are people that are so devoid of anything actually meaningful, anything actually good or decent or quality, that they have to live their life existing with their whole personality being, this is my thing. It's like some people, they can't understand it. And I get it. I do very much get it. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine a life like that, where you wake up and the only thing that you want to talk about, the only issue that you want to surround you is this one issue. I was recommended a video from a VTuber. They were a trans VTuber. Do you know how I know they were a trans VTuber? Well, I clicked on the video and I watched a little bit of it to see what my friend was talking about. But in the title of the video, it was actually a live stream. In the title of the live stream was a trans flag. When you make that your entire identity, it is a massive, massive red flag for me. Because there is so much more to life than some arbitrary decision about, I don't feel right in it. It's like, if you are that far gone, you need to seek some mental help. Some serious mental help.
The Veilguard has been out for 2 weeks, and one thing has become quite clear. The game might be running out of steam, which some will argue that's totally normal for a big-budget single-player experience. Some, though, will also argue that if you compare this to any of the other big-budget RPGs the last few years, they were doing far better numbers at this point, and the publishers made sure to let everyone know of it. Dragon Age is an established franchise, and a triumphant return after a decade of being dormant should probably be garnering a bigger reaction, but it hasn't happened. If anything, it's just been a lot of negativity. Word of mouth matters, and the critic reviews don't carry the weight that they once did. This is a game that likely needed to sell 5 to 7 million copies at launch to make a profit. Yep. BioWare's Edmonton office has been working on this game for 10 years, likely in full production since Anthem's release in 2019. It's been through a reboot and tons of departures, a lot of chaos. Currently, BioWare employs around 500 or more developers. Most of those employees are making six figures, and it's reasonable to believe
the dark spawns here look so stupid. They look so stupid.
Employees, around 500 or more developers. Most of those employees.
Yeah, they look like some kind of version of the husks from Mass Effect. They just look so much worse than the darkspawn in Dragon Age Origins.
Employees are making six figures, and it's reasonable to believe this is a $200 to $400 million game, which requires millions in sales, which all indication is that it isn't reaching those numbers right now. But the chaos surrounding this game in terms of games media coverage has only continued as well. We talked recently about this Aftermath article written by a former Kotaku writer that argued that YouTubers and Twitter are responsible for the poisoned state of video game discourse. Zero accountability with their own role with how games media failed readers the last decade or so.
Yeah, it's totally my fault, guys. It's my fault. I'm here talking about how, terrible it is that this game is in the state that it's in, wanting BioWare to get better, wanting them to do a better job, encouraging them to stop playing around with this, this disgusting, degenerate, cult-like ideology that only ever leads to ruin. Giving them all of my advice at no cost to them, things that would help them, achieve a much more lucrative and prosperous and happy future. But no, it's my fault, because I didn't play the same game as these people in the establishment media, which is basically to lie to you, the audience, in order to get you to pay money for a game that they knew wasn't a return to form for BioWare. A triumphant return. 9 out of 10. Definitely want to buy this one. These people have the gall to lie to you, to try to steal money from your wallet, to get you to part with your money under false pretenses, and buy a game that is shockingly shit. And then they get upset when people like me call that out. I am over these nimbyist, putridly pathetic, beta male, weak, insufferable losers. These people that refuse to take any accountability for what's going on in the gaming industry. People that absolutely will not look in the mirror and see that they are the problem. That they continue to defend some of the worst people doing the worst things. They will not acknowledge the fact. They will not acknowledge the fact that it is them and the mentality that they bring to the table that ultimately is the biggest problem. Now, one person who looks like a Down syndrome Hassan Piker was going on about how gamers are toxic. Gamers are the problem. And this is a tale as old as time at this point. We've heard it over and over and over again. These people just simply refuse. They refuse to acknowledge the fact that the gamers are the one buying the product. Do you understand that? I am not, first of all, freak, I am not beholden to you or anyone else. You are not owed anything from me. Do you get that? You are not owed anything from me. Not my respect, not my time, not my effort, certainly not my money. So, if you and the other freaks in the industry, who there weren't low IQ, probably inbred degenerate scum, would realize, hey, wait a minute, we've been going about this all wrong. We actually need to make a product that people want to pay for, and want to invest in, and want to get invested in. Oh, it's incumbent upon us. We are the ones that need to do something. The moment that you pull your head out of your boyfriend Hassan's ass and realize that you and other people like you who are in a position to talk about this with a larger audience, that you are the ones that should ultimately be making the point that I'm making, which is the gamers don't owe these companies anything. The company owes gamers everything. They owe the gamers everything because they're the customer. The customer is the ultimate say. It's not the investors. It's not the CEO. It certainly isn't the dying media. It is the customers.
You fucking need DEI because you wouldn't have jobs if DEI didn't exist to complain about. You wouldn't be making money on YouTube if DEI didn't exist. So you're
Down syndrome Hassan Piker.
really the ones that need it. Unless your game has only white dudes. If you have a woman, she better be fucking hot.
Yeah.
You know, get an ugly woman out of my game.
Yeah, God forbid God forbid having an attractive woman in the game that entices people to actually want to play it. No, this freak, this low IQ, virtue signaling freak is like, the male gaze is problematic. We really need ugly women there too for representation. Dude, fuck yourself. God, you and people like you are the problem. You are weak and you are pathetic and you make excuses and you basically blame fans and consumers for wanting basic human shit. No, I don't want to look at a fucking fatty, an ugly woman. I don't want to look at her as the princess in the castle unless it's a meme, a joke, and it's part of the game. But you twink, homosexual beta male freaks are going in there saying, no, you need to remove the element where the woman is attractive. We need to get rid of this toxic masculinity. It's a real problem. No, people like you can't deal with DEI not being there. You're the ones that push it in the first place. I would be more than happy if I never had to see anything to do with DEI again in my life. I would be more than happy. I would be beside myself if these companies got their heads out of their asses and you got your head out of your boyfriend's ass and you actually started to make games good again. Not just good, great. Make American games great again. MAGA. Make American games great again. Sounds pretty damn good. Give the customer value for money. Treat them with respect. Stop blaming them. Making excuses. It's the gamers. The gamers, they're just never happy. No, they're never happy with the shit that you freaks put out.
But my most recent video is a lengthy one, dedicated to dissecting that drivel, along with a Forbes writer which tried comparing the Veilguard to Hogwarts Legacy and argued that games media was overwhelmingly fair to Hogwarts, as evidenced by the Metacritic score. Yeah, that's what he argued. In the days since that video, the Forbes writer has only doubled down, but chose not to respond when I confronted him with the facts. Hogwarts Legacy was a clear example of ideological bias, and review scores don't tell the whole story. Many reviews had points that had nothing to do with the game, and many outlets ran with disclaimers. IGN's reviewer said nobody at the company wanted to cover it. Rock Paper Shotgun refused to cover it. Fanbyte said they wouldn't cover it. The Gamer only ran negative articles. Kotaku said it was rotten. Wired's 1 out of 10 was horrendous. PC Gamer gave it a positive score and still decried the game, same with Loadout and many other outlets. That's why when glowing review scores came down for Dragon Age the Veilguard from the carefully selected access media sites, readers overwhelmingly scoffed at that coverage, especially with the viral clips that would follow showing the modern day preachy politics that have no business being in a dark fantasy franchise like Dragon Age.
Amen.
As noted by the Forbes writer's colleague, Eric Kane, that has far more integrity than most in this industry. But the games media circus show meltdown has only continued with Dragon Age the Veilguard. We have IGN now running a negative article, which is very interesting coming from an outlet that just a couple of weeks ago gave this game a 9 out of 10, declaring it one of the best BioWare experiences. But I guess we gotta play both sides, especially since a lot of users are feeling very different about Dragon Age. Dragon Age the Veilguard is at war with itself. The sequel to Inquisition's Dreadwolf story is trapped in an action game with no interest in the past, which feels like a lot of points that many of us were bringing up for a while. The overall result is that Dragon Age the Veilguard isn't the golden era BioWare game that I had hoped it would be. You know, I feel like I'm being gaslit here because games media was just arguing the complete opposite. Torn between
It's a return to form, a triumphant return to BioWare. Yeah, they were lying. They were lying to you to get you to pay for the game because they are access journalists. They are propagandists for these big companies.
Continuing its traditional role-playing legacy and starting afresh as a modern action RPG, the end result is in an awkward sequel trapped in a cage made of reboot ideas. And then an even more blasphemous article is this piece from Vice. I don't even know how to describe it. Dragon Age the Veilguard, the necessity of games journalism.
Oh, man. Oh, God.
Dragon Age the Veilguard has been another example of exactly why players need games journalism more than...
So, ladies and gentlemen, you know how I think about gaming journalism and gaming media. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but I want you to do an experiment real quick. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to imagine you're laying in bed. All right? And you're laying in bed and you're having a dream. You're sleeping. You're having a dream. And you're under your covers. Let's say it's kind of cold out, winter is coming and all that. And in your sleep, you rip a major fart under the covers. All right? You rip a major fart under the covers. But it's trapped under there. It's stuck under there. And so you're safe. But then, inexplicably, you move your body a little bit, and the stank air, which is the hot air from these journalists, comes rushing up towards the exit that you made and escapes near your nose. And you go, ah, ah. And so you are awoken from your dream by a rank-ass, disgusting fart. That is the first thing that you experience when you wake up. It sets the mood for your whole day, and you're sitting there in your own stank from when you fell asleep, and it rushes out near your face. That feeling of, oh my God, that's horrible. Oh God. And then realizing that this is how you're waking up, and you were awoken by your own fart, and the whole complex range of emotions you're feeling. That's how I feel when I think of games journalism. It is a fart that escapes near your face to wake you up, and it is putrid, and it is gross, and it is horrible. And it really, really would be better if that entire thing never happened. You just wish that you could go back to sleep, but you can't, because the stink of it is still in the air. It's still permeating everything. You are stuck now with the option being throw off the covers and get up and leave the room. That is games journalism, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, you need games journalism. You just don't realize it yet. Oh, God, Vice. We're going back to the trenches with this one, so it's no secret Dragon Age: Veilguard is the latest DEI game to be subjected to criticism with zero bearing on the actual game itself. You know, all of that content surrounding certain characters and the preachy political stuff that has no business being in a dark fantasy franchise like this, just ignore it. It has no bearing on the actual game itself. Just ignore that content. Let's imagine a world without video game outlets, no IGN, no Kotaku, no Polygon. They all just poof overnight, gone. No more reviews or insights from games journalists. Stop. Telling me about a very bright future if that's indeed the case. You know what that leaves you with, to gauge how good a game is? And yes, Vice is about to generalize and pick a random Metacritic comment up, and we don't even know if this is a real comment, but censoring on Metacritic has gotten completely out of hand. Not a smart move if you want to stay relevant, aka in business, because this whole NWO Great Reset woke psyop has failed, narrative's crumbling, and everybody's not bailing out in time will go down with it. This, in case you couldn't tell, is a user review from Metacritic.
I trust that review. I don't even know who that is. I trust that person and that comment more than I have trusted games journalism in over 15 years. Across the board. I trust this random comment that they're trying to use as a way to say, no, you need us. I trust that comment way more than you. Way more. It's not even close. Give that guy a job.
Picking this comment out to generalize all user reviews, but anybody would know on platforms even like Metacritic or Steam, players and users are usually able to, give points to it and say if it's helpful or not, and most people probably wouldn't say that this is helpful because it doesn't say anything specifically towards the content, and it's also not really that funny. But we're going to generalize because they're trying to make an indictment on user reviews and talking about a future that doesn't even exist. Dragon Age: The Veilguard is a lesson to us all. Now, what did you meaningfully glean from that comment? What information that excerpt will help you decide whether Veilguard is worth your time? That game has characters of different ethnicities, and I don't even think that comment had anything to do about that, and that's bad. This brand of criticism extends to YouTube, and yes, here's the generalization. They move it from user reviews now to people like myself, because this is what these outlets have been doing. They're trying to attack this medium as a lot of YouTubers and Twitch individuals because they're starting to gain a lot more traction than them. Games media is dying, and they have to put the attack, especially they have to give themselves weight for why access media needs to continue, why these publishers need to feed into their media machines, but at the same time, they're losing jobs while a lot of readers are looking to individual creators for coverage. And these outlets like Vice like to gaslit their audience and lie about coverage that's coming from most, YouTubers and such. They say, sure, a few YouTubers provide thoughtful feedback on the strengths and weaknesses of a game, but some of them couldn't care less about worthwhile, relevant, informed discourse. That's a very small minority, if we're being honest. They don't have to talk about the gameplay, visuals, characters, story, pacing, mechanics, or any of the other nuances one look for in a traditional review for a game. But guess what? Most reviews from YouTubers, the Mr. Matty Plays, Skill Ups, ACG, Wolfheart, Extra Life, so on and so forth, all of them have meaningful criticisms about the actual game. Instead, they can turn their camera on and say a game sucks because it has pronouns in it. And again, they're not giving any examples. They're just picking a random YouTuber. I'm sure there's one out there, but they're not actually giving any examples. They're just generalizing over many individuals in this medium. Or features too much diversity, or ruined a franchise by introducing any other sexual orientation that isn't straight or gender identity, that isn't a man/woman. These aren't real criticisms. Many are very comfortable in understanding the LGBT themes in franchise.
No. I'm not going to let them get away with that. It's part of it. No, absolutely. LGBTQ should not be welcome in game development. It just shouldn't. And the reason is because you've had 10 years to add LGBT characters into your games, and you failed every single time. Every single time you've added any sort of, any sort of variation on the LGBTQ movement or the anti-human, men and women are like this on a spectrum, and Abby from The Last of Us 2 can look, like a really buff woman and be gross. Or, Tosh from Dragon Age the Veilguard can have a really gross body type too, and also be one of the most insufferable, just despicable, disgusting characters in all of, in all of Dragon Age. Yeah, no, that's totally fine. There's nothing to see here. No, there's a consistent theme because the people in the LGBT community that are part of the insider access bubble, a lot of them are really genuinely terrible people with terrible ideas. They don't have a grasp on reality. A lot of them are mentally ill. They're morally repugnant. They're angry. They're vindictive. They're spiteful. And they have no duty of care for the job that they've been given. Instead, they are more comfortable creating a game out of spite to own the cons or own the Republicans or own the gamers. Which is why I think the modus operandi should be to keep all LGBTQ out of games, have male and female, and have straight video game options like it used to be when the games were actually good. We tried it your way. It failed. It didn't work. Let's go back. This sort of thing is like, no. We've invested too much into this. We can't pull out. You put good money after bad too many times. It's time to pull the ripcord and get rid of all LGBTQ nonsense from gaming and have it go back to being a straight man and woman, heterosexual relationships, because apparently you're not able to do anything else worthwhile. Just saying.
It's like Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age. They aren't talking about that. They're talking about the preachy political angle that a lot of these franchises have gone for.
I disagree with this guy's tone. I disagree with it, obviously his politics and his sentiment. He's going for the, no, we really do like the LGBT community. No, we really are on board with a lot of this stuff, but we just don't like it. No, dude, we've played that game before. No, I don't like all of it. I don't like the way that it's introduced into the games. I don't like the way that the people introducing it are smug, disgusting, bottom-feeding parasites, narcissistic freaks that don't have the ability to comprehend that the entire world doesn't revolve around them. People who are so untalented and undeserving and ungrateful. I mean, no, we've had enough. We've played enough games. We've watched you lie. Not this guy, but we've watched the gaming press lie too many times. We've watched these marketing, quote unquote execs, these community managers come out against gamers too many times. No, you don't get any more chances. That's it. And by the way, I'm going to mention something real quick. Guess what Stellar Blade is doing? So while Dragon Age the Veilguard is having women look as ugly as possible, guess what Stellar Blade is doing? Oh yeah, a crossover between Nier Automata and Stellar Blade. Now, I want to ask you, what do you think the outfit is going to be for Nier Automata 2B? What do you think her outfit is going to look like? Huh? I'm just curious. What do you think her outfit is going to look like? Oh, it looks like this, which looks great. Now, let's look at a Western interpretation. Yeah, that's right. This is in an Ubisoft game. Yeah, take a good look. This is the Western version. This is Western. This is Japan. Which way, Western man? I know which one I'm choosing. But yeah. We live in a time where you have people that think that the second option is the morally correct option, and it is absolutely astonishing that the left has become the party of censorship and basically dehumanizing and illegitimizing men and women.
The modern day politics that are thrown into franchises, especially fantasy franchises, that have no business for that stuff being there. But again, outlets like Vice can't admit that stuff because it doesn't feed into their narrative that they're trying to deliver to their readers with this article. The readers that are left, I suppose. There isn't a conversation, a point to it, all just noise. It's funny though, Dragon Age the Veilguard is getting lambasted for its inclusive elements because it apparently isn't a 10 out of 10 experience. Meanwhile, I don't recall Baldur's Gate 3 getting a whole lot of flack for, oh wait, never mind, I guess I had a momentary mental lapse. And the big thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is that it handled a lot of those subjects with a lot more nuance and care. That's the big issue with Dragon Age the Veilguard, in my opinion. And also there's a lot more freedom with the RPG elements within Baldur's Gate 3, and it leads by examples in that regard. But traditionally, people will excuse all that gross diversity if the quality is high enough, but true to form, that bar is only cleared once perfection is agreed upon. No real-world parallels there at all. And the thing about Dragon Age the Veilguard right now is that the game still is doing all right in review scores. Even from critics, it actually only has an 81. I think that's going to lower probably to the high 70s when everything's said and done. And only 68% of critics recommending the experience, and then users gave it a 30 out of 100, which... Damn. I don't know, I just find that funny in my opinion. But the big thing about Dragon Age the Veilguard is that the sentiment surrounding this game, even with all these positive review scores, it is overwhelmingly negative, which contributes to a very nightmarish scenario for BioWare and Electronic Arts, where they need to make millions upon millions of sales, and it just doesn't appear to, it's not going.
It does not correlate. You either can do one of two things. Either you can make a good game that audiences like, something like The Witcher. In The Witcher, there is no homosexual option. There is no LGBTQ. You get to choose between Triss and Yennefer. And guess what? Both Triss and Yennefer are both hot. They're both hot. There is not an ugly option or a trans option or any of this other disgusting filth. No, it really is quite simple. You get the choice between two hot women. That's how it should be. And guess what? That game did phenomenally well. I mean, this is fairly basic stuff. And yet, these people think, no, we can have it all. We can put divisive, disgusting, degenerate LGBTQ propaganda into our game. We can lecture the audience, take choices away from them. We can do what we want. And still we're going to make millions and millions of dollars that we need because our reputation and our finances are pretty much in the shitter. But here's the cold dose of reality. No, you get to choose one or the other. You chose one, and now you don't get the money. You don't get the attention. People are shitting on your game. This guy's being excessively nice, but the reality is that your player count, your sales count, pretty much everything, you are an abysmal categorical failure.
To happen. And the same story is on Metacritic right now. As you can see, 82 for I think this is the PlayStation 5 review. It's a 78 on PC, and Xbox is the highest at an 85. User review score though much lower. And we actually did see Metacritic respond to this review protest because Forbes' Paul Tassi had to reach out about it. Metacritic responds to this review bombing, and Tassi said he asked them for a comment about the slew of Metacritic user scores describing Veilguard with terms like woke, DEI propaganda, agenda-driven, and so on. They issued the following statement: "We take online trust and safety very seriously across all of our sites, including Metacritic. Metacritic has a moderation system in place to track violations of terms of use. Our team reviews each and every report of abuse, and if violations occur, the reviews are removed. The question is what Metacritic actually labels abuse, and if many of these reviews meet those terms." And this is another example of an article that very much has an angle for it. There's a reason why Paul Tassi of Forbes reached out for a comment about this, because he views comments like this as problematic, and they should not be allowed. But let's be honest, a lot of these individuals who have played Dragon Age Veilguard are even walking away with this feeling, this sentiment, and maybe it's not said in the most articulate way, but this is a perspective that many players have about Dragon Age the Veilguard. And it's not like these comments are only limited to these Metacritic review pages, because it's also things I've seen on Steam. And again, you can just easily ignore or discount these, but again, outlets like Forbes, they have a narrative that they want to spread with this, and they view that this is problematic and should be censored and taken down. In my opinion, that is not something that should happen. Now, in terms of how Dragon Age the Veilguard is doing right now, I think it's rather interesting. Jason Schreier deleted a tweet which was laughing about the game succeeding. He's been very tuned into a lot of the things that have been going on behind the scenes at EA BioWare for years. And he originally wrote, "Go woke, go bro," or "top the charts." And then somebody said, "There's no way you genuinely like this turd." And he said, "I actually don't like the game very much, but I do like seeing you chuds get dunked on." He deleted the original tweet, which I think may say a lot, especially if the game isn't doing all that well.
Right.
And the thing is, it's also rather notable that BioWare immediately came out saying there's going to be no DLC at all. And this is going to be the first time for this franchise, and they're already focusing on the next Mass Effect game, which might be them just trying to move on from this experience, because they realize they're not going to make a lot of money from this. And
True.
BioWare has had a very interesting track record the last number of years in terms of sales. You can look to Mass Effect Andromeda. It was still at the top 10 UK sales charts. It was still number one, I think, after a couple.
The UK? Yeah, going to the UK sales charts, I mean, that... I'm just saying, like, no, the game did not sell well. The game was not received well. They have had flop after flop after flop.
Couple of weeks, and then they also, Electronic Arts, weeks later, said the game was a financial success, but that didn't stop the fact that the game wasn't going to be receiving any DLC after all, and the studio was scaled down, shut down, and Mass Effect was put on ice for the last number of years until they made the Legendary Edition a couple of years ago. And I think that says a lot about how these charts and being number one on UK retail, it just doesn't mean anything.
It means nothing. It means, oh, we were number one on the charts. Oh, congratulations. It means nothing, especially for the UK. No, the game flopped. It did horribly, and then they put Mass Effect on ice. You don't think they would have made an Andromeda 2 if the game sold well?
Thing, especially because even if the game is a financial success, there still is a threshold that Electronic Arts, their executives, want the game to meet. And with Dragon Age, I think that's the same exact story here. And with Anthem, it is worth mentioning that it was revealed just recently the game sold 5 million copies, but still was a massive failure for BioWare. But also, I think it's important to note that we don't know if those 5 million copies came from, $70 sales or just a couple of dollars, because I remember going into the dollar store and seeing copies of this game, which might be why this game ended up reaching 5 million copies. But there has been some supposed insider accounts coming about in regards to Dragon Age the Veilguard, which is rather interesting. We have this article coming from That Park Place. Dragon Age the Veilguard rumored to have sold less than Star Wars Outlaws, which notably sold only 1 million sales within its first couple of weeks, which was honestly is baffling, especially for an open world Star Wars game. But this article goes on to mention that apparently, according to them, this is a YouTuber Endymion who supposedly has a source within EA BioWare. Again, take all this with a grain of salt, but he alleges, apparently, according to them, pre-orders for Veilguard were even less than initially thought. I told you in the last video there were roughly 115,000 total pre-orders across all platforms. That's digital and physical, by the way. And new info that my sources now told me that the numbers actually may have been too high. The number that they are hearing from people at EA now is that it was actually between 70 to 75,000 pre-orders in total before release, which is, not good at all. In total, which I'm told is that Veilguard may have sold overall so far anyway in the 500,000 range, which may sound good to some, but this is completely abysmal for a game of this level. And if that was accurate, I think BioWare would have to be shut down. There's just no way it was 500,000 at least at this point. We're going to get to some of the data in a second, but I think all indication is that it probably is underperforming, but I don't think it's to this level. But hey, I could be wrong. This YouTuber continued with his allegations saying, as I was told by the same source, BioWare's higher-ups believed this game would skyrocket past 100,000 concurrent players on Steam during launch. It didn't, of course. It only hit 89,000 as drop since. And I think that is a rather notable point, because when you look to a lot of the, big budget RPGs that have been launching on Steam, even Dragon's Dogma 2 earlier this year, I think it had a peak of like 230,000 players. Dragon Age peaked at under 100,000. Obviously, that doesn't say anything necessarily to the ownership of the game, especially with other platforms, but something. I don't think it is doing the numbers that
Well, it's not just that. If you take a look at Twitch. Take a look at the numbers at Twitch. They're abysmal. They're horrible. And I do think that makes a difference. I think that a game selling well is a reflection of the game having an impact on the cultural conversation. If you have a game, for example, Black Myth Wukong, that game did, 20 million in a ridiculously short amount of time? And then on top of that, people were talking about it. People were playing it. I have a very interesting metric that I've come up with for gauging whether a game has broken into the gaming mainstream, and that's actually if VTubers start playing it. Because the thing is, people go, VTubers. Yes, the managers at these VTuber companies and stuff, you take a look at the fact they all play the same game at the same time if it's popular. Because, of course, that's what you do. Like, for example, you remember the trading card game simulator? The TCG simulator? Everyone was playing that. Everyone was talking about that. People were doing videos about that. People were creating YouTube channels based around that. It was doing phenomenally well. Well, it sort of died off at this point a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, VTubers and other content creators were all playing this game and spending hours in the game. And that sparked a lot of content. People really, really wanted to watch that game. So not only did that game sell well, but on top of that, people wanted to hear about it. They wanted people to play it. They wanted to know the tips and tricks. They wanted to see all of it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in the VTuber community has played Dragon Age the Veilguard. Most of the major content creators, they played it. They didn't even finish it. This game has been absolutely abysmal. There is no defense for it. There is no excuse for it. It is the worst Dragon Age game, and it's not even close. And that is in a time where they need a win. And I will reiterate this. These people fail upwards. After Dragon Age Inquisition, the entire team should have been wiped out. And they should have started from scratch and built up a new team and gotten a group of dedicated, passionate, non-woke people in there that made a game that felt like Dragon Age. To put themselves back on the map and to put all the doubters to shame. Instead, they thought, Well, it'll be cheaper if we just pay for a couple positive reviews and have everyone say that it's a return to form for BioWare, and then we'll just rag in the money, and then, we won't offer refunds or whatever. It's like the nefarious nature of this. They knew the game was shit. They're not even bothering with DLC. Like, come on. If the game was doing well, they would absolutely be open to DLC, but the game is a piece of shit and they know it and they just don't care. Slop it out, they'll eat it up, and then we're moving on to Mass Effect 5. I gotta tell you, the amount of work that these people have to do to get me interested in Mass Effect 5, it is outrageous. That game, if there is even a whiff of this disgusting LGBTQ propaganda, if there's top surgery scars for your character creator, that's it. I'm out. There's no way that they could do this again, right? Well, of course there is. And of course they will. They didn't learn anything.
Were probably thought that this needed to do for them. Apparently.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you letting me voice my frustration. I appreciate you sticking with the channel, you supporting. This is a longer video, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next time.